If everything in your life is on track, it's all sunshine and rainbows, maybe save this episode for when it takes a turn. Not to be a prophet of doom, but life has its seasons. It has its ups, its downs, but some people tend to stay down longer and others up more often. And I want to talk to you if you're one who's just not feeling it. You're feeling down. Your hope meter's been on E for as long as you can remember. Please listen up. This is the Next Simple Step podcast. I'm Paul Goldsmith. Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And that's what I hope to empower you to do today. To help you remember it, I've come up with an acronym because when you're lost, a GPS is helpful. The acronym is GPS. The G is for gratitude. Now, I realize starting with gratitude can sound kind of hokey, but there's science behind it. In 2008, scientists put people in an MRI machine, and those that were experiencing gratitude, it showed that the gratitude activated their hypothalamus. Now, while I'm no brain scientist, I did look up what the hypothalamus does. And according to the Cleveland Clinic, its main function is to keep your body in a stable state called homeostasis. It does its job by directly influencing your autonomic nervous system. So if you're feeling out of control, if you're feeling anxiety, gratitude may help. I've been a big believer in gratitude journals for some time because it helped me overcome anxiety. I bought a little thing called a 5-minute journal. And in fact, I bought a whole caseload of them. So as a listener of this show, if you would like me to send you one, I would be honored to send you one as a token of my appreciation. You can just reach out to me on Instagram or X. I'm at Paul J. Goldsmith on both. I'll send those out while supplies last. But whether you have a gratitude journal or you're just intentional about having a daily habit of gratitude, appreciating the little things, may it be your home has air conditioning when it's hot outside, or your car didn't break down on the way to work. These things that we take for granted every day, it adds up. We're wired to notice things that are wrong so we can fix it. But if we don't counterbalance that by noticing the things that go right, then we get all out of alignment. As we're attempting to fill up your hope tank, we have to start with gratitude. So right now, if you need to pause this and think about 3 things you're grateful for today, and do that every day, and slowly but surely, you'll start to notice more things you're grateful for. And the opposite of gratitude is ingratitude or negativity. You can't feel gratitude and be negative at the same time. Just like in parenting, you reward what you want to see repeated. You reward your own brain when you experience gratitude over negativity. It's a choice in every situation. Find the good. Find something to be grateful for. That's G. As we're turning the GPS of our life back on track, we move on to P, progress. All progress starts by telling the truth. So just acknowledging where you are might not be where you want to be. Define for yourself, how can you make progress? What can you control? Not where do you wish you were or the circumstances would be different. Only control the controllables, and that's you and your mindset. What is something you can do today to make progress? So if you're feeling bad about a relationship, maybe you take the first step and reach out. You're feeling bad about your health, maybe you could try to get 10,000 steps a day. You see what I mean? Like, you have to find an area where you can get some wins and get momentum. When you're feeling stuck, find something you can take action on. I'm a big fan of doing morning pages, which is simply writing down 3 pages first thing in the morning of stream of consciousness, because after you do it a while, your brain automatically starts coming up with ideas of ways you might try to make progress in whatever problem areas of your life. Certainly, plenty of people try to sell you stuff, but there's no quick fixes, right? Only you know what has to happen for you to make progress in that area of your life. If you don't know off the top of your head, it really would help you to schedule some time first thing in the morning while it's quiet, before there's email and other people interrupting you, to do a brain dump on paper and do that for at least a week. I challenge you to do that for at least a week and see if you don't come up with some ideas of your own of how you can make progress in your life in the area that's troubling you the most. Which brings us to S, and service. When you are in service to others, you have less time to worry about yourself. And it really does help lift the fog. I'm not saying that it's going to solve all of your problems, but it takes your focus off for a minute of your problems and puts you in a mindset of service. I met this former record company executive in Nashville the other day, and his name's Robert Beeson. He was a senior vice president at Sony Records, and 13 years into his marriage, his wife left, and he found himself raising his 3 daughters who were 9, 7, and 4. Robert then went on to form an organization to support and encourage other single parents. He calls it the Solo Parent Society. And so he ended up leaving his job at the record label to run this organization. And it has now encouraged thousands of people and really been there for all of these single parents and their kids in their time of greatest need. He was in service to them. And so as Robert tells it, it's not the path he would have chosen in his life, but it's enabled him to help thousands of people and experience so much transformation and restoration and hope because he turned his life circumstance into a life of service. And so that's what I'm talking about. If you find yourself in a very difficult circumstance and you can't change what happened, but you can change what you take away from that and how you respond in an act of service. And I'd be remiss if I didn't include a book recommendation in this podcast. So I have a really good one for you today, and it's a really short one. So it's an easy read, but it is profound. It's called Peaks and Valleys: Making Good and Bad Times Work for You at Work and in Life by Spencer Johnson. The story takes the form of a parable in which there's a young man living in a valley who has conversations with an old wise man who lives on the peak. And I just want to share a few excerpts from the book so you get a better picture of the story. The young man often wondered if he would be better off someplace else. So sometimes the young man would stand in the meadow and look up at the range of the majestic peaks that rose high above his valley. He would imagine himself standing on the nearby peak. For a while he felt better, but the more he compared the peak to his valley, the worse he felt. So he spoke to his parents and friends about going to the peak, but they only talked about how difficult it was to reach the peak and how comfortable it was to stay in the valley, and they discouraged him from going. Even so, he decided to put his fear aside and got ready to leave as quickly as he could, and he set out for the nearby peak. But it was not an easy journey. It took him much longer than he thought. There was no trail to follow. He became lost among the thick trees that blocked out the light. He feared he would not find his way out. Eventually, he found a new path. Despite the young man's eagerness, he did not reach the peak until nightfall, and he sat down and groaned. "Oh no, missed it." A nearby voice in the darkness asked, "Miss what?" Startled, the young man turned and saw an old man sitting on a large boulder a few feet away. The young man stammered, "Sorry, I didn't see you there. I missed seeing the sunset from the peak. I'm afraid that's the story of my life." After a while, the old man said, "So what do you think of the view now?" "What view?" the young man asked. The old man leaned back and looked up at the sky. In turn, the young man also looked up and saw an array of stars sparkling overhead. He had never seen the stars so clearly from his valley. He was so upset about missing the sunset that he didn't notice the stars were brighter than ever from that vantage point. And as the story goes on, Johnson writes, peaks and valleys are not just the good and bad times that happen to you, they're also how you feel inside and respond to those outside events. And the peaks and valleys are actually connected, because the errors you make in today's good times create tomorrow's bad times, and the wise things you do in today's bad times create tomorrow's good time. Too many people fail to manage their good times and do not notice that they are creating their own bad times. They waste too many resources, get away from the basics, and ignore what matters most. So we actually create our own good and bad times far more than we realize. It goes on. Peaks are moments when you appreciate what you have. Valleys are moments when you long for what is missing. You can't always control external events, but you can control your personal peaks and valleys by what you believe and what you do. The path out of the valley appears when you choose to see things differently. Okay, I've just scratched the surface of this incredible parable. Check it out for yourself. The book is called Peaks and Valleys. My hope is that this podcast provided a little hope for you to recalibrate your GPS, to get back on track if you've been feeling a little wobbly. And if you'd like to talk one-on-one, reach out. I'm here. You can do that on the website, nextsimplestep.com, and just click on free discovery coaching call. And if you found this beneficial and you think it might help someone else, please feel free to share it. Thank you for listening. I'm Paul Goldsmith, and I'll talk to you next time on the Next Simple Step podcast.